Hey, this is Paulo with Meditation Amsterdam. Yet again, I'm in Guatemala, driving to my favorite lake, Lake Atitlan. And I hadn't made one of these little card videos in a while. And in fact, I hadn't made any video for some time, even though I've been reading voraciously about Advaita Vedanta and a bunch of other things. And one of the books that I picked up for this trip was the Upanishads. And I found that to be, everything that they claim it is, right? Every bit as important and as significant as they say it is. The Upanishads are collections of texts, the guy who compiled the version that I read, the translation that I read, has collected the 10 that are the canon that was selected by a famous yogi whose name escapes me at the moment. And I thought I'd do a little video on something that really caught my eye. And that is this idea of form versus essence, and it really struck me as something fundamental to understand, especially because one of the elements of my spiritual practice that I struggle with the most, as I presume most people do, is this idea of austerities. Or renouncing worldly pleasures in order to make room for your spiritual development to happen, right? So I am someone who, as most of it these days, is giving himself constant little dopamine spikes through checking my phone, through ordering home delivery meals, through watching, binge watching on YouTube and things of this kind. And, so there's that element, but then there's the more, the deeper element of renunciation and austerities, in which you really do give up on more fundamental things, right? So, such as chasing for a partner of the opposite sex, or the same sex, if that's your thing. For me, the idea of no longer seeking for a romantic companion is fairly difficult to swallow, right? I would have to be pretty high on the spiritual journey to even consider that. And to some degree it makes me feel a little bit like I fall short of the of the calling, so to speak. But at the same time, I see people living perfectly normal lives with romantic partners and so on, and there's a big part of me that would like to have that as well, right? I'm not gonna deny that. But so there's a couple of elements to this whole idea of austerities, or renouncing the world, so to speak. And the first one is this whole notion of giving things up externally versus no longer identifying with them internally. So there's this story of a guy who, or there might be like a cautionary tale of someone who is thinking about going to an ashram or to become a hermit in the forest, and the advice that they get is, listen, that might mean that you're going to externally renounce things, but your mind is going to be craving for them all the time, because you have not understood what it's about. You think that external renunciation and external austerities equate to be internally free of desire, but all you're going to cause is a lot of friction in your life, and a lot of sadness and anger, and frustration because you have not really given these things up. Um, and they do even explicitly say in the Upanishads that someone who has not established themselves in the spirit in a solid and deep way is ill advised to give up things in the world, because all that's going to create is a lot of unhappiness and ill health. Right? You're not going to be in balance because it's almost as if you've in the movie Fight Club, Brad Pitt says sticking feathers up your butt doesn't make you a chicken, and it's kind of that, right? It's this whole, fake it till you make it, misguided approach, but it doesn't work, right? It doesn't work because what you haven't renounced, even though you have stopped externally acting out your desires, is you have not given up the identification and the self-seeking activities of the mind and the body. So it is that self-seeking that needs to be renounced in the end. There's another example of a guy who goes out and says, well, I'm going to give up, say, all my all my land and my status, and I'm gonna give up my family name, right? So he gives that up, and then goes to the guru and says, have I become a Buddha now? Have I truly renounced the things of the world? And the teacher says, no, there's still something else to give up. And so he says, oh well, I understand. I haven't given up my my fancy clothes and my 10,000 donkeys or whatever it is that they had at the time. And so he gives that up. He's only wearing a loincloth, and goes back to the teacher, and the same thing repeats itself, right? He says, have I got it right? Am I a true renunciate? Teacher says, nope, haven't given up everything. And this goes on several times around. So he realizes that he still craves for let's say sex, so he gives that up. Teacher says not good enough. He still craves for food. He gives that up. Teacher says still not good enough. And it comes to the point where he's totally emancipated. He has given up every single external thing that he can possibly give up. He has given up thinking about these things. He has given up his family. He has given up his name. There's nothing left, right? And then he asked the teacher, okay, so tell me, what is it? Because there's nothing left for me to renounce. And the teacher says it's your sense of self, right? It is the sense of me, and the sense of personal doership is this idea that I am the one who renounced all these things, right? So that incorrect sense of self is the ultimate renunciation. It is living in a kind of personality limbo, if you will, in which you no longer know who you are and therefore have found your real self. And that's the big one, right? That's the big thing that you need to let go of. And so this brings me to the second idea of austerities and renunciation. It's how to make it work, and how to stop the cycle of self-seeking in things that are external to you, because it is not wanting sex or food or even a luxurious life that makes you fail in the austerities, right? It is the idea that you are seeking yourself in the obtainment of these things that makes it not well understood. So one thing that really struck a chord in this reading that I was doing is how they make such a clear distinction between form and essence, and that to me absolutely hit home. It really has landed now, and I hope it sticks. It's part of the reasons that I do these videos, is that some of these understandings stick. And in all fairness, I should be keeping some kind of diary, because there's many things that are important to help you out, so long as you haven't, it hasn't clicked yet. So form versus essence, right? So the idea is that there is a certain essence to objects, and that essence does not live in their form, but it is the real crux of it, right? It is what's behind the form of whatever you are seeing or chasing in the external world, so that it represents something in your mind that you feel you crave, and that will give you a sense of completeness once acquired. And it could be anything, right? We were talking about this with friends the other day, and someone said, well, I feel like I don't do enough of X, right? And I asked her the question, okay, so you don't feel you do enough of X. What do you think you will acquire when you get X? And she said, well, I think that I will acquire, making this up now, a sense of independence and a sense of self-reliance, for example. And I said to her, and what would that sense of independence and self-reliance give you? And, once we started to sort of dig into that question, we eventually got to the fundamentals that you usually get to, which is, peace, love, and freedom, and a sense of completeness, right? So those are, you eventually want to be complete and to be free, and that generates sort of peace and love in your psyche or in your heart. And so, and here comes now the essential understanding of this, is that external objects don't have any essence. They only have form. And so when you get them, you, for a very short while, experience the sense of completion that you were seeking, but it disappears very quickly, because you have pinned that sense of completion in an external form, which is not only transient and unstable, and you can't always control it, but much more importantly than that, it lacks essence. It's empty of essence, so that the essence that you're seeking, the sense of completion and the sense of being totally complete and totally free, is not contained and cannot be contained in that form, because the form is empty of essence. And so long as you chase form, essence will elude you, because you're chasing it in the wrong place. And another way to say that would be, stop looking outside, look inside, right? But it's a platitude when explained that way, because it's like, well, where inside, right? I don't know where inside to look for this, and I might as well just chase stuff, because at least it's a palliative, and it gives me a temporary sense of relief. So, but to me this really hit home, because unless you have understood that the form is essenceless, you are bound to chase it, because you're hypnotized by it, right? Your mind has incorrectly or has, in an illusory way, divided itself between observer and observed, and the observed is quote unquote out there, and it attributes the objects out there with essence that they lack, because it's hypnotized by them. So once you understand this, right? It may take a while for that understanding to go from intellectual to um, really emotional and essential. um, but it makes a lot of sense, because that's the reason that external objects and pursuits are so short-lived, that no soon as you've acquired that thing that you thought would make you happy, you immediately shortly thereafter feel unhappy, and then you start to chase something else again. And that's the reason, right? You were chasing something that lacked essence. So, so what is essence, right? Well, so essence, in its ultimate meaning, to me, is the self, is pure being slash knowing. And so, whenever you find yourself craving for something outside, the correct move to make is to not become hypnotized by the object, but to turn the observation around and ask yourself, what do I feel I lack in this moment? And the first level of that is going to be an answer like the one my friend gave, as lack of self-reliance or lack of initiative or something like that. But very soon thereafter, you'll realize that is in itself, yet again, only a disguise for the fact that you are out of your sense of self. You are out of self, and therefore you feel lack of essence, and you are seeking that completeness in an external object. And once you've gone down that road, it's very difficult to go back, because you're totally hypnotized by the object, and you've convinced yourself that once acquired, that object will give you a peace of mind and a sense of stability. But because of their lack of permanence and because of their lack of essence, objects are incapable of giving us that. Right? This is a very important understanding to me. It's something that I think will be an aid to helping engage austerities, but not in a kind of monkish or gruesome sort of like, really depriving yourself of things that you like, but to not engage in self-seeking activities or self-seeking pleasurable pursuits, because you understand that when you are chasing objects, you are though you are apparently trying to satisfy your sense of completeness and freedom, you are in fact depriving yourself of your sense of completeness and freedom, because you have it's almost like you've attached a little a little rod in on top of your head, and you have hung a little carrot on top of it, at the end of it, and you are chasing that carrot, telling yourself that once acquired, the carrot will make you happy, but all the while you are just tricking yourself into a kind of wild goose chase, right? So it's a red herring that if caught, which is not delivered, right? And in fact deprives you of what you're really looking for. So this is something that I wanted to share. That this idea of austerities, renunciation, the idea that austerities are not necessarily external, and that the real austerity is the one where you give up the sense of personal doership and the egoic sense of self. And secondly, that renunciation to external pleasures is that's the second point, that it can be unhealthy if you have not a solid enough sense of self to retract, back to which you can retract, or on top of which you can stand, to make it so that you're just not make yourself miserable giving up on nice things in life. And thirdly, that in order to give up the self-seeking activities in objects in the world, a helpful thing is to understand that these objects are not only transient and therefore very unstable, a very unstable base on top of which you can build your sense of stability and sense of well-being, but also because they lack essence, which is in fact what you're looking for. You are looking for an essential sense of completeness and freedom, and objects are empty of essence, and they don't contain any essence. In fact, essence contains objects and not the other way around, right? So you are seeking for the real sense of self, the real I, the self, the knower, or the knowing rather. And if you chase for external objects in the outside world and kid yourself thinking that they will deliver on that, you're kidding yourself, because they are truly empty. So I hope that helps. I might be doing a couple more little car videos as long as I'm on the road this time around. And yep, see you around.